Welcome back to Normalized PTSD. Today we have Steph Page. He's a former Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force and real familiar in my community, VOD, but he's also been helping veterans for a really long time. He has a really cool story, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Today we have Steph Page, and we're going to discuss a bit of his history as well as some of the organizations that he's currently running now. Steph, I'm so glad you jumped on. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Awesome. I guess we'll just start from the beginning. I see you started, 2004, 2005, and that's when you started being a real leader, like hitting the first sergeant, and then that led you to command chief sergeant of the Air Force. So you want to tell me about that experience and why you went down that path and how that led you to where you are today?
Yeah, I started off as a first sergeant back in, 1996. I was aircraft maintainer as a crew chief, worked on FB-111s, KC-135s, B-52Ds, B-2s, KC-10s. And I came to a point in my life where I wanted to do something different. I wanted to, create change for airmen. And so I jumped in the first sergeant field, and then in 2003, I got promoted to Chief Master Sergeant. They PCS'd me because, of course, along with the rank came the PCS, and went to San Antonio, became the first sergeant for the Air Force Personnel Center. And then shortly after that, they were looking for a command chief. So I was kind of the in-between the first sergeant, command chief gig. They made me the senior enlisted leader at AFPC, and then I got a job as the 12th Line Training Wing command chief. Did that up until my retirement, January of 2009. And then shortly thereafter, I was hand-selected by the deputy of personnel at the Pentagon to start up a brand new program called Air Force Recovery Care for Wounded, Ill, and Injured. And this was during the height of the war. Down in Brooke Army Medical Center, we were getting 80 to 100 combat wounded a day. And then from that, I rolled into, went to work for a non-for-profit, building mortgage-free homes for combat wounded, which was an amazing gig. Loved it. And then shortly after that, I decided to take a sabbatical. My first wife of 32 years had passed away, and decided just to take some time to grieve. And it wasn't long, probably 9 months later, maybe 10 months later, I got a call to come back and go to work and run a contract for Armed Forces Services Corporation. And the contract was financial coaching for veterans and low-income families. The most important piece about the veterans at the time is, many of them would leave the gates of their installations and not have a clue on what to do with their money. And so what we did was we provided this financial coaching program that was free of charge. And it was amazing to watch the transformation of how much people, learned how to change their financial behavior and the way they thought about money. Then shortly after that, that contract expired. I went to work for another company called Victory Federal, and that went well for about 3 or 4 months until COVID hit, and everything got shelved. And so after that point in time, I thought, I'm going to try retirement. And I did well for about 2 years, and just recently jumped into a new non-for-profit, something I've been extremely passionate about for so many years, is veteran suicide. The name of the organization is called Check a Vet, and I am the acting secretary for that organization as we try to grow this thing and make it happen. Yeah, that's kind of my snapshot in less than my 5-minute elevator speech and snapshot of my career.
No, that's amazing. It seems like you've been helping veterans for quite some time. Can you speak to what inspired that passion? Like, was it a moment, or was it like a history? Like, what led you to want to be helping the veterans to the level that you are now?
Boy, that's a great question. No, it wasn't just a moment. It's been something that is kind of inspired me. I've been inspired by many great people. The very first one was my high school athletic director. His name was Ted Blahnik. Ted Blahnik was at Pearl Harbor when Pearl Harbor was attacked. He was on the USS Helena. I guess I'm not really sure how to pronounce that, but his ship took some damage. They rebuilt it, and not long after, he was on that ship when it was sank at Guadalcanal. He floated for 3 days, and when they recovered him, from the oil and the salt water, they thought he was Japanese and they were going to kill him. And thank God he was able to speak. And long story short, he went on to be a school teacher, and he was my athletic director. And he's the guy that inspired me to join the military. And then through the years, I've had the opportunity to, toast honor with, Tuskegee Airmen, the remaining Doolittle Raiders, General Paul Tibbets and his crew, Carol Shelby, and many of these men would tell me stories of what it was like for them and really how little they were actually taken care of. And so, for me, I seen a need where I wanted to change the culture. And again, I'm just one small person in a big ocean, and if I can save one life, take care of one truth, I don't care what it is, I'll do it. I'll still do it even today. So it comes from being able to stand on the shoulders of giants, air power legends, and to hear their stories and be inspired by them. So I give all the credit to them.
That's amazing and outstanding. I agree. And that's kind of why I wanted to get started. If we could help one person, it's totally worth my time, I feel like.
Yeah, sure is. Is.
So you're currently with Check-A-Vet, and prior
right.
to that, I believe you were with Coalition to Salute American Heroes, or you still do a little bit with them?
Yeah, I'm still working with the Coalition. The Coalition is another fantastic non-for-profit. David Walker is making this organization one of the world-class non-for-profits that are taking care of vets as well. And they've done a little bit of a shift, which I think has been very positive, to where they're now including caregivers. They're doing a lot of work for the spouses and their families, and can't speak. I can only speak greatness about what they're doing. And of course, I sit on their board. And again, David Walker is an amazing leader, as well as Michael Carmichael for Check-A-Vet as well.
I did have one quick question about Coalition to Salute America's Heroes. Do you know if the eligibility is only for physically injured, or would it also include PTSD and TBI injuries, like mental injuries?
It does include those as well. I mean, they for the longest time, unfortunately, a lot of non-for-profits wanted combat wounded. Physical injuries you could see, amputations, blind, burns, that sort of thing. And they steered away from some of the PTSD. And many of the organizations that I've worked with, I said, hey, listen, that PTSD, the stuff that they going on is an internal injury. I said, it's one thing when you cut your hand and you say, ouch, that hurts, and you're bleeding, to go to the emergency room. They give you stitches, they fix you, you're good to go. But when you're bleeding inside and you can't see it, you can feel it, but you can't see it, most people are more likely to not go seek help for it. See, because the other thing I always tell people this, and some folks can agree or disagree, I don't care, but we in the military, we're wired to serve. And if you take away somebody's weapon, or you take away their ability to go out and do any type of EOD work, or work on an airplane, be on the flight line, whatever, They don't want to be classified as sick, lame, or lazy. And in the military, we're slow to ask for help. We're slow to ask for help, and it's by design. And so it takes that moment where somebody can say, I truly need to get help. I need help. And there's so much help available out there. Yeah. So, and again, the coalition's doing great work as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I flipped through their website as well as Check-A-Vet, and I was just going to hit on them a little bit at first. They have some retreats called Heroes Freedom Weekend and Road to Recovery. All that looked pretty interesting, as well as was it the one that kind of jumped out to me is Make a Veteran Smile. They also offer reconstructive surgeries that may not be covered under insurance, and that I was like, what does that mean? You know, like what reconstructive surgeries wouldn't be provided or normally provided by the military, and it's stuff like tattoo removal or like Botox for headaches. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. Those are, you know, everybody. I know a lot of people that got some tattoos in the military. They were like, oh God, I wish this was not on my arm anymore.
Yeah.
And then
I've seen that happen.
Yeah. I dove into the resources page too. It seems like that organization also has a lot of links and more information for, you know, like CBD awareness. There's a couple nonprofits that they reach out to or identify, like Give an Hour, Lone Survivor Foundation, which is really good for families as well as veterans for PTSD. And they are doing good stuff for sure.
Yeah.
So if anybody wanted to go get more information, check out their resources page. It's pretty outstanding, as well as Check-A-Vet. Check-A-Vet has some stuff too. And if you wanted, we could just dive into Check-A-Vet next, because that's the one I guess you're currently you're doing both, but this one's your personal baby, it seems like.
Yes, sir. This is a brand new one that Michael Carmichael started. He's a 5th Group guy, Special Forces, snake eater, and just has a heart of gold. And you know, he got this thing started, and how I got connected with him was through a friend of mine who's a Green Beret SF guy here. He put him in contact with me, and he called me, and I was sitting in a parking lot listening to him, and I told him, I said, this is something I have longed for. You know, because in America, we don't want to talk about suicide. You know, we don't want to talk about it. It's like it's been this taboo world. And see, what most people don't realize is just the 9/11 era veterans. We have lost 30,177. You can get this off the VA website. Also, since 9/11, reported by the VA, and this includes the 9/11 era veterans all the way up until I think it's 2019, we've lost 119,475 veterans to suicide. Think about that number. Just think about that number. You know, there's a number that you hear quite often, 22 veterans a day. That's very accurate. You know, and the other thing that people don't realize is that for every veteran suicide, this is all on the VA website. You can go research it, download it. For every veteran suicide, there's 135 people affected by just one suicide. When you crunch those numbers, that comes to 16,129,125 people that have been affected since 2001 by veteran suicide. Think about that number. It's huge. Mm-hmm. And so for me, you know, when I think about Arlington Cemetery, there's over 400,000 people buried in Arlington Cemetery right now. If you were to take all these suicides that have happened since 2001, it would fill 1/3 of Arlington Cemetery. That's how huge this is. And so our focus is awareness. We want to educate people. We want people to start talking about it, to start, you know, that's the name of the organization, Check-A-Vet. We want you to check on your veteran. I try to call 3 veterans a day. whether they're friends or if I run into somebody on the street and they're wearing a Army shirt, Navy, Coast Guard, Marine, whatever it is, I go up and I shake their hand. And here's the beautiful thing about it. I can speak their language. You know, that's a beauty when you meet somebody from that has served, in the military. There's a language there. That it's like an instant bonding. And so for us in this organization, what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring awareness to it. And Michael Carmichael has done some great work. We just started a YouTube link, and he's got Facebook as well. But on this YouTube link, there's a PSA interview with him. There's also a veteran suicide IQ test, and basically to ask people, how much do you really know about veteran suicide? And then we also did a video, and the video is very, very powerful, very, very powerful. And there's a part 2 that's coming down the road as soon as we can, raise some money. And that's really what we're after is being able to raise money to make people aware of what's going on in today's world, and not to be afraid to ask your son, your daughter, your cousin, your uncle, your grandfather, whoever that's a veteran, and just say, hey man, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you going to hurt yourself? I used to have to do that all the time as a first sergeant, all the time, especially when somebody was, suicidal ideations, and this thing that you're doing with PTSD and how it ties in is just so vitally important. And people need to see the signs and to know. Can I share a story with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
Okay. There was, when I was a command chief at Randolph, I was going back and forth to Brooke Army Medical Center. And this was before the days of the non-for-profits and the help. I mean, Brooke Army Medical Center was just being overwhelmed with so many combat wounded. Well, we had two Air Force guys. One was a TAC-P and one was an EOD guy. And they had their families there with them. So one day I asked them, I said, hey, you guys need homes. I'm going to offer you up a home. And they said, okay, we would love that, because they were living at the Fisher House. And at that time, the Fisher houses were real small. And so what I did was I went to my wing commander, Rich Clark, Colonel Rich Clark. He's now a 3-star. Great man. And I said, sir, I want to do something out of the norm. He says, what do you want to do, Chief? I said, right across the street from my house are 2 chiefs' quarters, and they're empty. I said, I want to put these 2 combat wounded guys in these houses. He says, okay. He says, why those particular houses? I said, because every day when I look out my window, I want to see them. I want to make sure they're being taken care of. And if they have any needs, I want them to be able to walk across the street and say, Chief, can I talk to you? So one night I had, and I won't share his name because I haven't asked for permission, but one night I had one of the EOD guys. He was a senior airman. He came over and he knocked on my door and he says, Chief, can I talk to you? And I said, sure. He says, I'm not doing well. And I said, okay, well, let's talk about it. I said, do you want to go for a walk? And he said, sure. So at Randolph, the housing is in a circle. There's 3 circles. And we must have walked that thing 25 times. And I was listening to him. I was listening to him talk. And then finally I asked him, I said, are you going to hurt yourself? He says, there's times I really want to. And I said, okay. I said, have you ever been evaluated for PTSD? And he says, I was. He says, and what they asked me was if I was homicidal, suicidal, and there was another question I can't remember. He says, I answered no to all of them. And then they put the stamp, said, okay, you're good to go. I said, here's the deal. I said, I'm not an expert. I said, but what you're telling me is you have some severe PTSD going on. And he did. And so what I did was I called our med group commander and I said, hey, all hands on deck. We've got a troop here that needs help. And so that very next day he went in, got diagnosed, started working through the process of recovery. And I'll tell you, let me tell you about this guy. Let me tell you how how good God is sometimes. No, God is good all the time. I stand corrected. But one day I called him up and I said, hey, dude, do you know how to play golf? And he said, Chief, I only have one arm. And I said, okay, what's the problem? He says, I only have one arm. I said, okay, and what's the problem? He says, how can I play golf with one arm? I said, I don't know. Let's go try it. So I take him out to the driving range, get him set up, show him how to hold a stick, swing the whole 9 yards. And this guy starts cracking balls straight down the fairway, 225 yards with one arm. And I'm just absolutely blown away by it.
I can't do that with two arms.
Today he's an avid golfer. No kidding, I can't either. Today he's an avid golfer. He's a spokesperson sometimes for Ping. And his life is just completely transformed. You see, I don't share that story to have people say, oh, Chief Page, what a great job you did. Not at all. What I share that story with is because I was curious about him. I cared enough about him to say, hey, let's do something different. Let's try something different. Let's start doing some stuff that will help you rehab, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, and mentally. And let me tell you what, that dude today is phenomenal, and he's doing so well as many other troops that I've had an opportunity to be a part of their lives. You see, it's kind of like when people say, thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. I love that when they say that. But let me tell you what I really love is when people will say, hey, tell me about your service. What was it like for you? What was it like for your family? What was it like for your kids? What were the deployments like? I want them to be curious about what it is I did. And boy, when that happens, I mean, I'm telling you, I am melted butter in their hands. I mean, it just blows me away because now I can share with them. And that's, I think, what a lot of veterans, would like as well. But I appreciate folks asking or telling me, hey, thank you for your service. But I want them to be curious. You see, and it's the same thing with Czechoslovakia. I want people to be curious about their veterans, what it is they're doing, how they're feeling, all you have to do is go watch the video on YouTube called One of 22. This happens all the time. People think that their veterans are okay when inside they're just dying inside. And it's real. This is real. Post-traumatic stress is real. Suicide is real. And the numbers show it. it. And these wars that we fought, and kind of like you as an EOD guy. I mean, I know an EOD guy right now, dear friend, who went out on a patrol for 10 hours in Iraq, came back, and one of his supervisors pinched his hand on a pintle hook, connecting some equipment to a truck. So they looked at him and said, hey, man, we need you to go on this next patrol. He says, okay, I'll go. Went on the next patrol. He was blown up. Left arm amputee, completely blind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And for years, he was haunted. He was, until he got help, until he truly got help. And just recently, Gary Sinise Foundation helped build him a home out in Colorado. Another powerful organization, the Sinise Foundation. Absolutely.
I believe I know who you're talking about.
You probably do. That's a small community.
It really is, yeah.
Yes,
and then
indeed.
on top of that, like we're talking about the suicide rate and the size of the community. I think on average we only have about 6,000 EOD techs, and that's across all services. And there for a bit, definitely when the war was full speed, I think we were losing someone about every 3 to 4 months to suicide. So the death rate was higher in the suicide than it was in the actual war. It was a wild time.
That's right. This is the reason why my boss, Michael Carmichael, has jumped into this, because this, his world, especially in the SF world, he has seen this over and over and over again. We also have on our board a guy by the name of Chris Miller, And Chris Miller was the last acting Secretary of Defense for Donald Trump. Another Green Beret SF guy, very, very passionate, 3,000-pound brain, go to war kind of guy. But these guys are so, I mean, their passion is just off the charts. And so is mine. And that's the reason why I jumped in on this team. And again, if I can eliminate one suicide a day, just one, it's worth every second of my time. And there's no telling what our organization is going to morph into, and the direction it will go. But right now, the biggest thing we're focusing on is awareness, bringing this stuff that's been buried. Because you go to the VA website, you got to dig. I mean, you go to any of these websites where they've done a lot of research, you've got to dig, and you got to crunch numbers. But it's there. The information is there, and it's staggering. I mean, think about 16 million people that have been affected since 2001 by veteran suicide. Think about that number. That's unbelievable. And think about the 119,475 veterans that have crossed over to the other side. For me, even as a first sergeant, I learned this as a first sergeant, and I carried this through the rest of my life, is that you got to give people a safe place to have a voice with no judgment. If somebody comes to you and say, "Man, I'm thinking about hurting myself," that's the last thing they need to hear is feel any guilt or shame about how they're feeling. But they got to have a safe place. They got to have a safe place to have a voice. And it's the same thing with people with PTSD. Listen, I can't begin to tell you the number of troops I know that have been blown up in combat. They'll look you square in the eye and say, "I don't got PTSD." I go, "Really? Okay." One day it's going to wake up, and you'll see it, and it's ugly. So we got to be able to bring an awareness, not only to PTSD but suicide, because they're so interlinked together. So it's the same reason why I jumped into this financial coaching program, for Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. I had no financial background, but as soon as they said veterans, I said, I'm all in. And low income families, I said, I'm all in. Because this is another piece where veterans struggle with is finances, because when they leave the gate, they're no longer getting has duty pay, flight pay, jump pay, all those special incentive pays, those all go away. And shoot, that sure was nice when you were in the military, but it's now gone. So we wanted to teach people about money. You see, there's so many, and my wife is a therapist, and she works at a Medicaid assisted treatment facility, and the number of veterans that come in that are addicted, to opioids, from the pain, staggering. Her organization is just one small piece of the big puzzle. So there's so many issues out there that people need to be made aware of, and they're just not.
Yeah.
So that's.
I got blown up in Afghanistan. They offered me a prescription, like a lifelong prescription of opioids, and I was like, nah. I was like, I have an addictive personality. I'd rather just try to work through this.
So you know how dangerous that could be. You see, and BAMC got really good with pain management. They had a pain management clinic there that they really started to help veterans with. But there are some veterans out there. You give them those lollipops that they used to suck on, and boy, it wasn't long before they could get addicted to it. Especially when you're having phantom pain or whatever. But yeah.
As well as it numbs the pain, the emotional pain associated with PTSD too.
Sure does.
I was going to ask you, I guess because you have a little bit more, or I guess a different view and perspective of the military than I do, and maybe might have some insight and direction of the way mental health is going. Do you think that they'll ever get to a point in the military to where you can be diagnosed with PTSD and it not result in you being found unfit for duty? Because I think that that's definitely a contributing factor to why, I know me personally, that I knew something was wrong. I didn't know it was exactly defined as PTSD at the time, but I was like, yeah, there's something wrong. But I always answered the questions correctly because I didn't want to be pulled off missions.
Exactly. You didn't want to be put in the, I used to call them snap flights, SNAP, you know, and, you know, you don't want to not be able to go out on a patrol. You do not want your weapon taken care of. You do not want to be restricted from the flight line, you know, because of PRP or whatever the case may be. I mean, although these are checks and balances, which are good, but here's another great story. I'll never forget this. So I'm due for my annual physical. And so I go in to see the flight doc. I'm the command chief. And before I get in there, the tech says, "Hey, chief, you got to fill out this form." I said, "Okay." So I'm looking at it, and it says, "Do you have any stress in your life?" And I'm thinking, I'm a command chief. You know, I've got thousands of troops, civilians, big responsibility. Yeah, I got stress. Are you kidding me? That's a stupid question. So the next one says, you know, "Are you homicidal suicide?" I checked, no. They said, "Do you drink more than 6 beers a week?" I can't even remember what it was. I said, "Yeah." And then it asked some other questions. And I was honest. I mean, I was completely honest. I go in and I hand it to him and go in and sit down with the doc. And doc, you know, he gives me my physical and he says, "Okay, chief." He says, "You now have to go to mental health." And I said, "For what?" And he says, "Because you checked the box where you said you had stress." And I looked at him and said, "Colonel, you know what I do." He says, "I know." He says, "But you still check the box." And I said, "I'm not going." He said, "But you have to." I said, "I don't have to do jack diddly." I said, "I'm not going." And he says, "Why aren't you going?" I said, "Because I was honest on a form. You want to send me to mental health." And see, for me, I'm thinking, if I go to mental health, which like any other troop, regardless of your rank, I'm thinking, okay, they're gonna pull my PRP, they're gonna take away my TS clearance, they're gonna do this, they're gonna do that. And I said, "No way, I'm not going." I get back to my office and my wing commander calls me down. He says, "Chief," you know, they had already called me. Why didn't you go to mental health?" I said, "Colonel," I said, "let me ask you a question." He says, "Okay." I said, "Do you have stress in your life?" He says, "I'm the wing commander." I said, "Exactly." I said, "Now, would you have checked that block? Yes?" And he paused and he says, "I hear you, Chief. I know what you're saying." I said, "Exactly." I said, "Do you know what really angers me about this?" I said, "This is the reason why your troops will lie on those forms. They'll lie on those forms."
Yeah.
I said, "Because
we all did."
That's right. I said, "Because they don't want the stigma. They don't want to lose that." I said, "You got to give them a safe venue where there's no repercussion in them going, okay, I am suicidal. I am homicidal. I have stress in there." I said, you got to work with them." I said, instead of putting a scarlet letter on their chest, you know, it's no good. It's just, and I don't know what it's like today, unfortunately, and please forgive me that I can't speak for it, but I'm sure the military has course corrected many of the things and re-looked at the things, you know, because it is an important thing. You know, personally, if I were king for a day, I would hire more therapists and more chaplains. I'd hire a ton more because the mental health is so vitally important, especially in today's changing culture. You got to have it. You got to have them resources. You got to have it.
Yeah, I think mental health, it should be up there with physical health. You know, like we have a PT test every year. It's annual. I think it should be similar to that in some regard, but not to the level. Like I was going to circle back. I felt like one of the biggest fears for my community was being found unfit for duty, because I never heard of anyone being found unfit for duty whoever came back from being unfit for duty. You know, it was like that was a death sentence for your career. It was a one direction, like one way highway.
Right.
And that's why every time they asked us those questions, like we always lied.
Right.
And honestly, there's a few times in mental health, like they like would give you a foot stomp saying answer these correctly or you're done.
That's correct.
And it's like, well, okay.
Yes, that's correct.
And I think that culture is definitely what bred a really high suicide rate, and it's unfortunate. So I don't know. I would like to get more information on how it's done now. I only have connections to like my side of the house, not like big picture Air Force stuff or even military stuff. But eventually I will get someone on here that I can ask those questions for, because I would like to see how that's changed. Because I think right now the kind of what I'm seeing is we're not at war anymore. So we're not focused on anything war related. And I feel like all of that's really kind of it's going to be a big cycle. If we go back to war, it's all going to be there again.
Right. Exactly. And I think the biggest thing is seeking out or giving people the resources. And the VA is trying extremely hard to course correct many of the things that that was done in the past to where they're at today. So I know many of the VA centers are trying to help as much as they can. But the biggest thing is finding these people. And oftentimes you can find them right on the streets. You can find them in your grocery stores. You can find them at gas stations. You can find veterans anywhere, and have those conversations with them and talk to them. You see, and people are so deathly afraid to talk about suicide. They're so afraid of it. I've never been afraid of it. I've never been afraid to speak up. And because one day I know that person's life will be changed for the better. And again, this goes right along with what you're trying to do for your own community, the EOD community, which is a close knit. I'm telling you, that is, when I think of EOD community, I mean, that is a small inner circle, and to crack the code within that group, you have to be really special. And I like that, you see, because that's the camaraderie and the esprit de corps that the EOD community has, the SF community has, the JTAC, combat controllers, all the above. They're small circles, and I will say this about the EOD community, like the EOD Warrior Foundation. I mean, they take care of their people. They truly take care of their people, and it's just finding them. It's just finding where they're at. Yeah.
And I guess what's happening in the EOD community is really what opened my eyes to the systemic problem with PTSD. And then I also have family and friends that are police officers and paramedics. And then I started seeing how it's impacting in almost all the communities. And I'm like, oh my God, that's why I think it's such a big thing. And I'm trying to, I guess it's hard to get all the information at one time. So just pulling a thread, seeing where it goes. And currently it's really military focused, but I am looking into a little bit of the stuff on the civilian side too, because I feel like the military's got help. There's so much help, so many nonprofits, a lot of organizations out there to give resources and information for them. But then you look at the civilian side and it's like police officers almost have nothing, and
yeah, it breaks my heart.
Yeah, same. So let's circle back to Check a Vet. So what is
real quick?
Yes.
Hey, Jonathan, real quick. I want one last caveat on PTSD that I don't want people to miss. This is so vitally important. We talk a lot about PTSD for the military member, but where we fail miserably is to talk about secondary PTSD for families. Some people call it compassion fatigue, because I remember being at BAMC when those families would arrive and see their son or their daughter or their husband that's been 30, 40, 50, 80, 90% burned. They're unrecognizable. And the trauma that takes place for them at that moment, and even the caretaking of that, we cannot forget, we cannot exclude the families. as well as the doctors and nurses and the people that are caretaking for these people. And I'm telling you, when BAMC was getting 80 to 100 combat wounded a day, when those C-17s would roll in, I mean, this medical staff was working feverishly around the clock, as well as senior leadership to provide, housing for them, where they could. I mean, one family I know, she rolled in with her 2 kids, and she had nobody. And thank God I was there at the tarmac and said, "Hey, you got a place to stay. As long as you're in San Antonio, you're mine. I'll take care of you. And we'll get your husband healthy, and we'll get you, you see, we cannot forget those caregivers." So I just wanted to make sure people hear that, because oftentimes we focus on the military member, but we forget the families.
Yeah, you're definitely the third or fourth person to mention that, which I'm going to be honest, when I started this, I never even thought of that. And then when you start hearing, it makes sense, the impact on the families. And that's why I'm striving to get in touch with the Lone Survivor Foundation, because I really love what they're doing out there and the resources they provide to be like, hey, this is a family problem. So that foundation isn't like, okay, we'll take the veteran. It's like, we're going to take all you, and really educate, inform, and help those as a unit. And I think that that's really powerful.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's very, very, very important. And you also got to remember, we have veterans out there and active duty service members who are suffering from PTSD and never been in combat. That's real too.
Yeah,
that's real. So it again, this is what I love about some non-for-profits that won't say, "Oh, you're not combat wounded, we can't help you." Because there are people out there still today that haven't been in combat, that are suffering from primary PTSD and or secondary PTSD. You see, so it's such a huge population.
Right.
You see, and again, this comes through, much like what we're doing with Check-A-Vet. It comes through awareness, education, being curious, asking people, talking to people, doing the research to understand what it looks like. What are the symptoms? How does it affect people? And I think I just think it's vitally important. But, that's just my thought.
Absolutely. And on that Check-A-Vet, how do you get involved? What kind of people are you looking to impact, and how does that process start?
Well, it's new. To get in touch with our CEO and president, Michael Carmichael. You can reach him at Michael, Michael at Check-A-Vet, just how it sounds, CHECKAVET.org. And send him an email. Go on to the YouTube videos, hit the like buttons. Watch these videos, educate. We're hoping as time goes on, and we can gain some more traction, raise some more money, is to be able to put out more videos so people have this awareness, and we can educate people. It's a great organization. If somebody is having suicidal thoughts, there's always a number to call. The national hotline, which is 800-273-8255, and you press 1, or you can text to the number 838-2255 to get help. There's help out there. There's definitely help out there. And again, we want to, ideally, I would love to eliminate all veteran suicide. But there's we don't discriminate based upon race, religion, creed, sex. If you're a veteran and you need help, there's resources out there for you. And again, we want to bring awareness to the people that surround that veteran as well. That's an important piece.
Absolutely. I find an informed support structure leads to a stronger support structure.
Amen. I agree.
Awesome.
Yes, sir.
On that,
Yeah.
just going to circle back. Is there anything that you want to touch on before we wrap this up? I really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for jumping on.
Well, Jonathan, I appreciate you. It's always an encouraging thing for me to hear and see somebody that is passionate about taking care of their brother or sister, to lift them up. And really what you're doing is you're taking that soldier, sailor, Marine, airman, Coast Guard, and you're throwing them up over your shoulder, and you're carrying them through the IED field. And all you're asking to do is keep talking to you, keep speaking, keep moving forward. And you're literally carrying them through the minefield. And I think that's a powerful thing. I'm not a religious person, but I'm a very spiritual person. And when I hear people that, like yourself and many others, David Walker or Michael Carmichael from Chuck, that when I see and feel their passion, it's a very, very spiritual thing. And I can't begin to tell you how much I appreciate you and the work that you're doing. That's the mark of an amazing leader. I call this servant leadership. And really that's what you're doing. It's servant leadership. Thank you for what you do. I mean that.
I really appreciate the kind words. All I really want to do is bring information to make it easy for people to find the information, because I just feel like there's so much out there. It's really hard to get started. I know it took me a long time to get started, and once I got started, I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, which direction? So I just started going all directions and slowly found my way to here. So hopefully I can speed up that process for others.
Yeah. Well, as I tell my boss, Michael Carmichael, I said, if you build it, they will come. If you build it, they will come. Every non-for-profit I've ever been with has always had a slow start. And, but if you continue to build it, it's kind of like what Chris Miller says, you'll have catastrophic success. And I think in this arena that we live in, again, there are so many veterans out there that need help. And if you're a veteran listening today, please, please, please know that you're not alone. There's help out there available for you. There's help available. Yes, sir.
Absolutely. And on that, we'll wrap it up. Thank you so much for your time. And with that, we're going to wrap things up. I hope you all enjoyed it. I really find Chief really inspiring. Love the passion that he has out there and love what he's doing. If you wouldn't mind, just like and share. I'm on all social media platforms, and we really appreciate the support. Thank you.